Hi guys, and welcome back to yet again another episode of Facepalm Reviews. It has been a while since we did a review. Of course, once again, I'm really bad with engineering and taking apart the reels and stuff. So I can only give you a really user kind of review from what I from what I can infer lah. That's the most I can give you. I can't give you super in-depth where I remove every single thing and compare the parts and stuff like that, which I really want to do, but unfortunately I don't have the skill sets to do so. So today I'll be reviewing the Daiwa PR-100. Maybe I've been living in a cave, but apparently Daiwa and Shimano, which are two really big and established fishing companies, actually have bait casting reels that cost around the $50 price range. So for Daiwa it's the PR-100 and for Shimano it's the Shimano Best Rise. I'm going to review the PR-100 because this is literally the cheapest bait casting reel you can find for $50. So yes, this is the Daiwa PR-100. It has recently been released in the Singapore market. You can get yours at any Daiwa retailers like World Fishing Centre or where I got mine, Gary's Tackle. If I'm not wrong, this reel is only released in the Southeast Asia market, so to all the US viewers, you might have to parallel import this reel, unfortunately, which might cost more than $50, more than 50 Singapore dollars lah. So without further ado, we're gonna start with the unboxing. I'll bring the camera closer and let's unbox this reel together. Okay, so right now I'm gonna do the unboxing and give my first impressions. Of course, this is not the first time I'm looking at the reel. I have to plan out what to say and everything, so yeah, I'm just gonna act like this is my first time unboxing this reel lah. You can see, very beautiful color. I actually have a sequence of how I want to do the first impression. So first I'm gonna start with how it looks. For looks, this reel has a really nice color scheme, urban camo. Star Drag looks pretty sleek, and overall it looks very decent for a $50 reel. Next, for the feel, this reel is quite small, it's size 100, so it pumps very nicely in my hand. One thing I don't really like is the fact that the whole body actually feels very plasticky. You can hear. Plasticky, very brittle, a little bit vulnerable. The reason is because this reel's body is probably constructed out of carbon composite from what I see on the Daiwa website. Next, for the user experience of the reel, first of all, I must disclaim that I'm a big Shimano fan and I've been bullied by a lot of Daiwa fans in the past. So whatever I say, please take it with a pinch of salt because I am reviewing a Daiwa reel. So let me just start with the Star Drag. So the Star Drag doesn't click. Pretty expected for a reel that costs around $50. Most of the reels that I reviewed in the past doesn't have their Star Drag clicking as well. But just saying, the Shimano Best Rise does have a clicking Star Drag. Overall still can be used for the knobs, okay lah, comfortable knobs, but for smoothness, it is just pretty damn solid. It's really buttery smooth, and it is hard to believe that it costs $50. This is the smoothness of a $100 to $200 reel. One thing to take note of for smoothness, right, is that no reels will ever be this smooth out of the box forever. So if you were to use this reel maybe 5 times, it won't be as smooth anymore. This happens to every single one of my reels. Even a Shimano Stella wouldn't feel as smooth as how it was after 5 to 6 trips. It's hard to judge, but out of the box, let's just say it's very, very smooth, okay? The spool adjustment knob doesn't feel super loose. You really feel that you can adjust it to the minute detail. Last but not least, the thumb bar of the reel is very positive. It feels solid, so the thumb bar is good. Overall, the user experience of this reel is pretty good for a $51 reel. Now let's go to the features of the reel. So the braking system that this reel utilizes is the magnetic braking system. As you can see, it's controlled over here in this small knob over here. Now you might call me old-fashioned, but I quite like the one where it's a big knob over here and it's easier to set, in my opinion. But with this, you can just set with one hand like that. Unless you have really big hands, then you probably have to use 2 hands, which defeats the purpose of having a small braking system like this. But apparently this is quite a high-end kind of feature, so let's just give props to it. What I really like about this reel is that it's easy to open the side plate. As you can see, it's very intuitive. You just have to lift it up like that, open it like that, done, and can get access to the spool. This is how the magnetic braking system works. Basically, the lower your number go, the further away the magnets will be from your spool. So this reel has 3+1 ball bearings, 3 for the reel and 1 for the anti-reverse. This reel also features a 6 kilo drag, a 6 kilo drag. It is really insane to have a 6 kilo drag on a reel that's this tiny. To me, having a high drag and max dragging all the time isn't exactly good for a reel. Like imagine the amount of pressure that is on all the gears inside this reel at 6 kilo drag. And based on experience, whenever I max drag and fish for like one trip, go to a spawn fishing trip where you just, you know, pump the fish out like mad, the reel will just feel so worn out after that. Okay, another thing that I must say about this reel is that it has a 7:3 to 1 gear ratio. Strangely enough, all the reels that we reviewed in the past all have a low gear ratio, like 6:3 to 1. The previous model of the PR-100 also only has a low gear ratio. So I think this 7:3 to 1 gear ratio, which is really good for fishing for freshwater fishing in Singapore, because we want to use a high gear ratio to quickly retrieve back our lure and cast it out again for any like surfaces or what lah. Yeah, so this seems to be quite exclusive for bait casting reels of this price. And the next thing is, right, this reel has no clear indication whether it has stainless steel ball bearings or whether it's safe for saltwater fishing. So I would say that it's not safe. So if you want to use it for saltwater fishing, the max I would go is like mangrove fishing with this. But overall, after unboxing this reel and, you know, after giving my first impressions, I would strongly recommend it for like freshwater fishing, for peacock bass, maybe not snakehead, and maybe like pond fishing at Otto. But Otto is closing down, so Farmway 3 is also closing down, so maybe pond fishing in JB lor. That's it for the first impressions. Overall, for $51 reel, I would say that this reel has a pretty good first impression to me. And what I'm going to do right now is to spool this reel with line, and I'm going to start fishing. I don't think we'll catch anything, but at least we can try and see how this reel casts. Without further ado, I'm going to spool in 10 pound of kariki braid. I'll definitely spool everything in because it's 0.13 millimeters and confirm can fit lah. So I'm just going to spool in now. I would strongly suggest you not to follow how I spool line, as I feel that I'm quite trash in it. Number one, you shouldn't even spool it out. Oh. Okay, we've spooled in some line. Not the best spooling ever, but we're gonna try to do a little bit of fishing now and see how this reel fares with some light lures. Right, I'm gonna try a sinking minnow from AliExpress. Overhead cast. Cast it really well. It casts it really well. Also because I'm using quite light braid lah. Side cast. Solid. Even when I'm reeling in like weeds, okay, it's not good to judge on weeds, but even when I'm reeling in the weeds, you can actually feel some kind of torque from the reel. Pitch cast. Very good. It's pitching. Very good. Really a smooth reel, and I can't believe that it cost $51 and I'm having so much fun with it. I would say the main difference between an inexpensive and an expensive fishing reel is that the fishing experience is different. You probably have a much better fishing experience using an expensive reel. You probably feel good also using an expensive reel. But if you use an inexpensive reel, you still catch fish, but you know, the reeling might not be as smooth. The anti-reverse might give way now and then. You might not exactly have the best fishing experience using it, but using an inexpensive reel, using a hand line, using any kind of equipment, you still catch fish. So I feel that really depends on the angler lah. Hey everyone, I'm here at Kranji Reservoir. I can't exactly make a review video without actually catching a fish on the reel, right? I brought the same setup up, and we'll be trying to catch a peacock bass on it. I have about 30 minutes. Hopefully you can catch a fish on it, see how it fares, see how the drag fares, see how the reel fares, pulling in a fish. So the final test. Here we go! Woohoo! This one's pulling out. Nice struggle. There we go. Okay, I've just ended the fishing session. I would just like to consolidate my thoughts because after fishing today, having another fishing session, I actually realized more about this reel as well. I could now give a proper conclusion to this review video. So here's the conclusion. First impression, this reel definitely exceeds my expectations for the first impression. So the looks, the feel, the features of this reel really surprised me when I just unboxed it. Now, for fishing experience, I would say that the casting is not bad. It casts lures that is above 6 grams pretty well. I didn't cast anything that is above like 21 or 28 grams with it because my line is quite light. I mainly just want to try out the range where a lot of Singaporean anglers usually use. So lures that is above 6 grams, it casts pretty well. So I would say this reel struggles a little bit when it comes to casting lures that is 5 grams and below. Why? The reason is because when you're using a heavy lure and you're casting it out, the speed at which your lure is pulling your line out would be quite consistent because it's heavy. Then you won't really have the issue of your spool overspinning. But if you're using a lighter lure, when the moment the lure leaves your rod, right, and the moment you start casting, the initial burst will then cause your spool to overrun because the lure doesn't fly out as fast as a heavier lure. So you have this issue of having a bird nest. And this is where I find that I have to kind of guide the lure out when I'm using a lure that is 5 grams and below for this reel. For 5 grams, not so much. It only happens when I really try to get as much distance as possible. But when I start using lures that is around 3 grams and below, which is quite pushing it already for the price of this reel, trying to push it into like, a big finesse reel, then I realize I'm struggling quite a little bit. You can still use a lot of thumbing, adjust the brakes, and get the lure to fly out, but you might not be achieving the maximum distance lah. The next thing I would say is that the cranking is overall quite smooth, but sometimes when I'm pulling in weeds or when I'm cranking in a fish, I can actually feel the gears rubbing against each other and a little buzzing from the reel. Sometimes when I'm using lures that are slightly heavier, your heavier soft plastics or your crankbaits and stuff like that. Okay, crankbait of course is buzzing lah, but your heavier soft plastics, I can also feel the gears rubbing against each other and a little bit of buzzing. Am I being too anal? Maybe I am, but I'm really just giving all my honest opinions about this reel. That's overall for the fishing experience. Okay, next for catching a fish experience. So this is why I came here, because I wanted to catch a fish and feel how this reel would fare. Okay, let me just turn on the aircon first. It's getting a little bit hot. Luckily today I managed to catch one peacock bass, and it was also a decent bass that pulled off a bit of drag, and this made me realize that this reel actually has quite a smooth drag for the price, which is quite surprising because based on reels that we reviewed in the past, all the reels that are around $50, they have a very bad and inconsistent drag. I'm not saying that I used a lot of drag just now, maybe just about barely 1 kilo of drag, 1 or 2 kilos of drag, but the fish managed to peel it out quite smoothly. This reel also does have some torque when you're pulling in a fish. I also noticed this when I was pulling in weeds at Lower Pierce Reservoir. Not the best way to test out a reel. So all in all, this is my conclusion. Will I recommend this reel to a beginner who have never tried bait casting before? Yes, I would. If that beginner is on a tight budget, if the beginner is a student or someone who doesn't really want to fish that often and don't want to spend that much on fishing, then I would strongly recommend them to take a look at the Daiwa PR-100. Who else would I recommend to buy this reel? Maybe someone who hasn't fished in a long time, sold all their fishing gear and wanted to get back into the sport, but don't see himself committing that much to it. Maybe you can consider this reel as well if you like bait casting. Or someone who doesn't fish freshwater as their primary kind of fishing. Someone who's like a saltwater angler or boat angler and only fish freshwater when his kakis jio him and you need a reel. You can consider this as well because it will more or less fit all your fishing needs for local freshwater fishing. Other than Toman. Okay, I might not use this reel for Toman. Okay, so I sincerely apologize for the change in location, the camera, and everything. Unfortunately, my GoPro footage got corrupted, so I have to do the ending of this video on my phone. I am genuinely surprised by the performance of the Daiwa PR-100. It surpassed my expectations in many ways, but I'm not surprised to the point where I'll start listing all my other bait casting reels on Carousel and start changing all my reels to something of like this caliber. But one thing is for sure, and that is that the Daiwa PR-100 is definitely a reel that is worth the money. So if you're looking for something that is inexpensive, or you just started bait casting fishing and you're on a tight budget, do give this reel a chance. And that's it for the review of the Daiwa PR-100. If you would like more facepalm reviews, just let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us a lot, it helps the algorithm a lot, and it helps us to, be motivated to make more videos. So do like, comment, and subscribe. Also, I would just like to disclaim that I have only used this reel for about 2 trips. So for anyone who have owned this reel or who have used this reel and have other thoughts about it or have some feedback on it, do list it down in the comment section down below. You can start a whole conversation and discussion about the Daiwa PR-100, and it will actually help a lot of people out there who are thinking whether to buy like a cheap bait casting reel or not. So thanks for watching and looking forward to all your comments. Bye guys.